quienes hacen parte de este evento y hacen que esto sea posible. Quiero primero que todo darle la bienvenida a todos nuestros panelistas. Nuestra gerente ahorita los presentará con más detalle y darle la bienvenida a Adriana Prieto, directora de programas de la Comisión Fulbright, quien dará unas palabras de apertura.
Así es, muchas gracias. Muy buenos días a todos y todas. En nombre de todo el equipo de la Comisión Fulbright en Colombia, queremos agradecer a la Universidad EAM por la organización de este evento y por haber participado en el programa Fulbright US Specialist, al igual que a la Red Universitaria Metropolitana de Bogotá, Rumbo. Quiero extender también un saludo muy especial y un agradecimiento a nuestros dos becarios Fulbright, la doctora Tasha Howe y al doctor Omana Loganathan. Para nosotros siempre es motivo de orgullo poder contar con profesionales de las cualidades de estos dos becarios, además por su participación en este tipo de proyectos colaborativos en donde participan estudiantes, profesores, colegas e investigadores. Un reconocimiento a ICETEX, que como socio fundamental de los programas Fulbright apoyó la cofinanciación del proyecto en el que participa el doctor Loganathan. Para la comisión es muy satisfactorio y motivante estar hoy con todos ustedes apoyando la apertura de este espacio académico, especialmente después de todo lo que hemos vivido y seguimos viviendo por la pandemia. En marzo del año pasado el programa tuvo que ser suspendido, pero finalmente se pudo restablecer gracias al compromiso y a la confianza tanto de las instituciones anfitrionas colombianas como de los becarios que están participando en nuestros programas. Un indicador de esto ha sido los 40 becarios estadounidenses que desarrollaron sus estancias en este primer semestre en nuestro país y los 70 becarios que esperamos tener en este segundo semestre. Los temas que nos convocan esta mañana es sin lugar a dudas una muestra del cumplimiento de los objetivos del programa Especialistas, que busca promover nuevas formas de colaboración interinstitucional entre Colombia y Estados Unidos, fortalecer las capacidades institucionales entre entidades de diferente orden, generar redes de colaboración académica, promover procesos de internacionalización, apoyar iniciativas y proyectos de acuerdo con las necesidades puntuales de nuestras instituciones colombianas. Desde la Comisión Fulbright esperamos que la visita de los especialistas haya sido muy productiva y esperamos que en este espacio de hoy se genere una discusión enriquecedora para todos los presentes. Muchas gracias por su asistencia.
Muchas gracias, doctora Adriana. Y a continuación quiero darle la palabra a nuestra gerente de Internacionalización y Relaciones Institucionales de la Universidad de EAN, Sara Vera Aguirre. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Angelica. Now we are going to move to English. This is an event that will be held in English. Innovation and social knowledge transfer sustainability challenges. Welcome, everyone. I'm very happy as the Director of International and Corporate Affairs at Universidad de EAN to open this panel of experts who will talk about innovation and social transfer and how this supports global achievements around sustainability. As many of you know, Universidad de EAN is highly committed with sustainability, innovation, and sustainable entrepreneurship. We have already reached some great partnerships with the USA, and we have won different grants with the 100,000 Strong of the Americas program, and other special partner is the Fulbright Commission. We work in related fields, and we would love to keep strengthening collaborations among our institutions. We are also committed to work in networks, and that's why we are very happy to be here with the Rumbo Network, the Metropolitan Network of Bogotá, who always are committed and highly committed with the goals that we work together with different universities in Bogotá. The Agenda 2030 is something that we have in common, and the projects that we work together are part of our priorities. After more than a year of full virtual activities, we are very pleased to welcome the visits of two of our US Fulbright specialists, Dr. Loganathan and Dr. Howie, who will join the panel with Dr. Leon Velasquez as a moderator, with Dr. Leon Velasquez, and as moderator, the director of our Master in Innovation of Universidad de Ann, Mauricio Sabogal, who is here in the panel presentially. Our first panelist is Dr. Loganathan. He is professor and director of the Chemical Services Laboratory at the Department of Chemistry and Watershed Studies Institute at Murray University. He has a Bachelor of Science in Zoology, Chemistry, and Botany from University of Madras in India, holds also a Master of Science in Marine Biology and Oceanography from Annamalai University in India, a PhD in Marine Biology from Annamalai University in India, and a PhD in Environmental Chemistry and Ecotoxicology at Ehime University in Japan. Dr. Loganathan belongs to the American Chemical Society, the Society of Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry, and the Kentucky Academy of Science in the United States. He has a large participation in research publications, books, and talks around this topic of expertise. Welcome, Dr. Loganathan. We thank Fulbright and EasyTex for the support and collaboration that makes possible that you are here today. Secondly, we have Dr. Tasha Howie, who is at Universidad de Ann in the frame of our membership with Rumbo Network. Dr. Howie completed her undergraduate degree at the University of California, Santa Barbara, and her master and PhD at the University of California, Riverside in the area of developmental psychology. She complemented her master's and doctoral work on abused children's social and emotional development. Her work with abused children led her to delve deeply into the theory and research of parent-child attachment. Dr. Howie is currently professor and chair of the psychology department at Humboldt State University in California. Our last panelist is Dr. Elizabeth León, director of the Environmental Management Research Group at Universidad de Ann, and she is professor at our Faculty of Engineering. Dr. León holds a PhD in Environmental Sciences from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology at Lausanne. She has a master's degree in Environmental Engineering at the EPFL, and she is a specialist in Environmental Management from Geneva University in Switzerland, and she's chemist of the Universidad del Valle, Colombia. Dr. León has over 20 years of experience in environmental and social impact assessment, in the development and implementation of environmental, social, and quality indicators, guidelines, and operating procedures for environmental quality and safety systems. She has experience in development and implementation of performance standards on environmental and social sustainability for private and public sector in Colombia, Switzerland, and the USA. Our moderator, Mauricio Sabogal, director of the Master in Innovation at this institution, is an economist of the Universidad Nacional de Colombia, specialist in finance from EAFIT University in Colombia, and has a master's degree in marketing from Universidad de los Andes. He is currently a PhD student in economics and business from Vienna University of Economics and Business in Austria. He has experience in defining corporate, financial, and marketing strategies, and 6 years of experience in the financial sector in top-tier companies. Director Sabogal has led interdisciplinary work groups and built campaigns, products, agreements, and sales strategies with successful results in various sectors. After more than 9 years of experience, he has been an undergraduate and graduate professor in fields related to finance, marketing, and innovation. Once more, welcome to our Universidad de Ann. We are delighted to have you here, and we're very happy to hear this discussion for the first time in our campus. Thank you very much.
So welcome to everyone that is here face-to-face, and also the people that are connected in our YouTube channel. Please feel free to make any of your questions in the YouTube channel, and we are going to discuss them with our panelists. Thank you so much to the two panelists that are here with us today. As I said to them, and I would like to tell that the same to you, this is going to be more humble or candid conversations surrounding sustainability, surrounding the relationships, the complex relationships between society, companies, technology, and innovation. I think we have different backgrounds and different perspectives that will help to perhaps bring some answers to these questions. And I would like to start with like a broad issue, which is called, I call it like an introduction to sustainability. Obviously, we have some context now. We were discussing about our current context, about climate change, about the perhaps issues related with inequality. The protest in our country is part of this reflection of the complexity of the societies currently. So I would like to start with a question for Dr. Leon, which is connected online. Based on your experience and knowledge, what are the sustainability challenges we face today, and how can technology promote innovative solutions to these challenges? Dr. Elizabeth.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this invitation. I think it is a fact that the humanity has already exceeds Earth's capacity to sustain our lifestyles. And I think that the biggest challenge is to develop and adopt sustainable means to meet our needs of food, energy, materials, and healthcare. Those include new technology that should be supported by scientific research and respond to needs of the community. And very important also, incorporating traditional knowledge. Communities involved is essential to implement new technologies. And if this is not, success to the laboratory and pilot scale is unlikely in the real world. Also, sustainable requires tight cooperation between academia, industry, and public sector. And we need a public policy framework to capacity building, technology transfers, empower community and users, and also financial support. And all this is important, but it's not sufficient. I think that the long-lasting sustainability is not only about new technologies. It is required that a change the way that we see things, use resource, and consume. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I would like to know the perspective on this question from our other two panelists. Professor Loganathan, please. What do you think about these sustainability challenges currently we are facing?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we are challenging a lot of questions with sustainability because for most of the things happened last 100 years. Things have changed a lot during the last 100 years. During this time, global warming issues and degradation of land, air pollution, water quality degradation, all these problems were coming up more and more. Each and every day we face those problems. So we are now know these problems, and also we are know how to prevent those problems also. But only thing we need to do is that we have to take actions. So in order to prevent those kind of long-term effects on the global environment, global health problems, all these things need to be carefully considered, and we have to make changes each and every day in our life. Very simple changes will be have an enormous impact on our environment or our the health. So therefore, having known those problems, having known the cause of those problems, and only thing is we are hesitating to change our lifestyle in order to prevent those the problems. So things should start with us, changing our own lifestyle each and every day, making sure that we are not using the natural resources indiscriminately. We use them, use the water, only the what we need it, and the energy how much we need it. We do not want to use them indiscriminately, and that makes it more stress on the resources and causing the problems. Therefore, the things should start with us, and we need to make our efforts in order to make our life a little bit change in order to make a better future.
Thank you, Professor. And Professor, what is your perspective on this issue?
Well, can you hear me?
Of course.
Coming from a psychology perspective is a different field than most people here are from, but the issue that I see as one of the greatest concerns for sustainable human life on the planet is inequality. And rich people in rich countries are causing the problems, and poor people in poor countries are suffering the results of these problems. So if we don't work on the inequity issues, if we don't work on equal access to solving the problems, then we're just in a downward spiral that will never end. So in my field, I'm focusing on the World Health Organization's Lancet Commission that looked at 180 countries and how they're doing on these sustainable development goals. And most of the countries had no data whatsoever, and only a few countries had any sustainability, equality, or child welfare metrics that were impressive at all for meeting the goals. So they suggest that we put children and families at the forefront of all of our sustainability efforts, because when we have people born into inequality, their human capital is wasted in helping us solve the problems.
So thank you. And it's a good thing that you are talking about the goals, development goals, because I would like to ask to Professor Leon about that, just that. What do you think about the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals related to innovation and technology transfer?
Thank you, Mauricio. I believe that there is important advance based on cooperation development. We have the Global Innovation Fund for the US. Also, we have the Technology Facilitation Mechanism for the United Nations. And this mechanism has a forum, an annual forum that countries that working in the CDG goals have cooperation between new technologies and transfers. There also have this mechanism of the United Nations has cooperation team that working in improved capacity building initiative in different countries. Particularly in Colombia, I know many efforts have been made to invest in science, technology, and which include financial support, some policies, guidelines to develop and transfer technology. But I think the most important thing is we have to keep working in national and international cooperation to achieve sustainability goals. And also academic sector have to work hand to hand with the public and private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are going to discuss some of the things that in this first introductory sustainability questions. We are going to discuss more in detail technology transfer. We are going to discuss more about issues related with the environmental and inequality, and also the different relationships between the different actors, academia, companies, and the different other stakeholders that are involved. So I would like to move on into a different subject, which is more focused on the development of products and services, and also its impact in society. Obviously, we are thinking about technology as a crucial part of the development of these countries, yeah, and also thinking about technology and the development of products as something that can solve so many problems that we are facing right now. So I would like to start with Dr. Loganathan. What characteristics do you consider that are important when transferring clean technologies that promote sustainable development of societies?
Yes, I think the clean technology is very good way of thinking because clean technology will allow us to reduce the carbon footprint. At the same time, this technology is very expensive. For example, it costs a lot of money to move from traditional to new clean technology. For example, so far we were using coal for the energy production, but when we use the coal-fired power plants, it emits a lot of carbon dioxide, a lot of metal pollutions, and a lot of other toxic or greenhouse gases emissions. All these are traditional practices we are doing, but moving to new technology is a big challenge because people are used to do what they were doing. They don't really want to change so quickly. So therefore, there is some kind of assistance from the people to move from traditional to new clean technology. In the case of clean technology, the advantage is that we can prevent the carbon footprint, we can prevent the greenhouse gases emissions, we can prevent the harmful effects by the chemicals which are accumulating in the environment. So therefore, there are a lot of advantages, but even though we have so much, we know the advantages of using clean technology, but thing is, for example, if you want to use, say, gasoline car versus electric car, it is a zero emission in electric car, but the electric car costs $100,000, but you can buy $10,000 or $20,000 per gasoline car. So it is very, very expensive. So you can definitely show that you can, zero emission, and the cost is very, very high. So therefore, it is really important that there is a gap where the change is not so quickly happening. It will take time to change from the traditional to clean technology. But if you think about the long range, long-term beneficial effects, we have to definitely move to clean technology.
I'm very interested with what you said about how expensive is going to be this transition to new technologies, more sustainable technologies. But you coming from a country, a huge country such as India, which faces similar challenges as our countries here in Latin America, I was thinking about a concept that we discuss a lot in innovation currently, which is called this frugal innovation concept. Because in context of lack of resources, in context of 40-something% of our society currently is poor. And we normally see it as a statistic, but there is a lot of people suffering and it's waiting for immediate changes in issues. So what do you think about the role of technology in creating these frugal innovation initiatives in these not so expensive products or services that help us to have a transition, but with our limited resources in terms of money, in terms of natural resources?
Yes, very good. I think it is very important to consider the situation in India, because India is a huge country and developing country, but it has a lot of problems. There are so many, all aspects there are problems. At the same time, there are areas which are showing tremendous growth, especially in the area of the automation with the computer technology developing automation, everything. So it is very fast in that particular area. But at the same time, there are areas which are very, very poor, and the opportunities for the people to get to the access to the new technology is very, very limited. So therefore, it is a major problem is that it is still developing, still trying to move fast for the change. But India accepts the change. That is one good thing, that many people, they want to transfer to the encourage or interested in innovation. They want to change it, but the limitation is resources, and they have manpower resource, but other resources are really lacking. So those makes it India is becoming a little bit slow in transferring from traditional to the modern technology.
Thank you. And I would like to bring together the social perspective, Professor Howe, because in adapting or in implementing new technologies, not necessarily only in developing countries, but in any country, there is always going to be a threat. We are going to change people's way of life. We are going to change people's traditions. We are going to perhaps have an encounter with the traditional ways of thinking and of doing. What do you think on the social perspective in bringing innovation to different types of societies and the social response and like the conflict that could arise because of this technology emergence or these new products emergence?
Well, I think we have to not approach these issues with a colonial mindset, that we are coming into your community to do something to you, but that we have collaborated with the communities on what they need and done needs assessments from their perspective, and to find out what their needs are and how we can meet in the middle and collaborate on changing their communities without having the elders of the community, the respected community, religious and cultural leaders supporting us. We're never going to be able to change the hearts and minds. For example, with the COVID vaccine, the leaders of churches have to tell people in their church that the vaccine is safer than risking dying from COVID, because they're not listening to a government or others that they don't trust. So you have to build trust and collaborations. And I'm thinking of, in terms of the green technologies, of course, I think of everything through the lens of children and families. And so you think about billions of people around the world who do not have a bathroom, a toilet, a latrine. They are defecating outside. They are polluting the groundwater, destroying the crops, and creating health and environmental hazards. Women have no menstruation products. They have to use dirty clothing for their menstrual purposes. And so some of the innovative, as you were mentioning, small cost technologies are design contests all over the world for students and for innovative thinkers to design solar toilets, toilets that don't require in-ground plumbing, toilets that get the waste off of the land, reusable menstrual products for women that can be made and distributed by women, so you don't have a cultural disconnect with male company owners and dealing with the opposite sex, because there's a lot of sexism and feelings that men and women don't interact in some societies. And so having women take the lead in helping women's health, likewise having local women trained on sanitary childbirth practices. You can have paraprofessionals that are not medical doctors delivering babies in a sanitary way. So all of these technologies related to sustainability definitely come down to the human family, which is really going to be the only way we can sustain life on Earth, is to protect the health and welfare of the families.
Thank you. Very interesting perspectives, both from the resource and environmental part, and also from the social perspective, and of course, the look to the look of innovation from a perhaps humble perspective, and not this colonialism perspective. So I would like to, if you in the audience have any question, feel free to raise your hand, and we can start the debate in issues that we are covering, okay? And the same goes for the people that is connected. Feel free to pose your questions. I am checking every couple of minutes my cell phone just to be sure that we can have your questions as well. I would like to talk about other issues, because we have perhaps discussed a little bit about like sustainability. We have talked about the products, the innovations and its impacts in society. But I would like to address other issue, which is the role of us, yeah, and the ecosystem. We called in my domain the innovation ecosystem, but it could be also innovation / entrepreneurship ecosystem, and it brings together a lot of different actors. Academia, as I said, different types of institutions, also companies from different levels of different sizes, different approaches to the consumer and to the community. It also brings together institutes for development and research centers, yeah? So taking into account all this ecosystem, where we are like almost sometimes in the middle, because we create some research, we also teach students in different domains, but we need to be like more connected with society. So in terms of that, Dr. Loganathan, I would like to ask you, how should, because of your experience in research, of course, how should the research departments, yeah, the transfer offices, and also the entrepreneurship offices and institutions of this ecosystem should be articulated to ensure that the process carried out within each are focused on the development of sustainable solutions for the university in favor of which all the beneficiaries, not only a research focus on end consumer and this kind of traditional way of doing things of capitalism, but also reaching other communities and stakeholders. What do you think about this relationship?
I think it is very important to have a very close-knit relationship with all these entities, because we have to exchange knowledge and ideas between each and every entities. In that way, we are aware of the things going on. So therefore, it is always important to have the good relationship with the different units, so that they can exchange knowledge, they can express their concerns, their opinions, and also find a way to improve their relationship and grow further in their approach to the sustainable issue problems.
Thank you. Professor Howie, what do you think about this role? Like from your psychology perspective, and obviously based on your background and experience in United States and working with communities, what do you think should be the role of this, of our institutions in this ecosystem in order to promote better research and more sustainable solutions?
Well, I think that we need to overcome our superiority complex over other people. A lot of academics see themselves as part of the cognitive elite that should rule society, and we always impose our will on other people. And so it really boils down to building partnerships of trust without exploitation or corruption, so that we can, again, do needs assessments to see what the community actually needs and create our research questions instead of in a deductive way from the brain down to the street, in an inductive way from the street to the brain. And so being able to have that contact with the street, with the real people, they can help us develop better research ideas, and they can give us insights that we don't have because we're in the lab, we're reading books, we're teaching classes, but we're not living there. And so they should be integral partners into helping us envision things that we maybe never even thought of.
Thank you. I would like to ask Professor Leon, because you have the Colombian and Universidad de Am perspective. What do you think should be this role of our university in terms of doing better and better research and impact research that could be transformed into sustainable products? What do you think about that, Professor?
Thank you, Mauricio. I think we have to think about the traditional knowledge. We need to integrate the people, the community. We cannot forget that the many of the environmental impacts have in the origin social and economic problems. And people on the region, on the territories, know your resource, know about your relationship with the community. So academics have to be more present in the regions, work with people, work with the community. And I would like to say maybe we need some transfer of knowledge from them to us. Is I think is the only way to propose a real sustainable solution. And also I want to make the link with the last question about clean technology. I think clean technology is very important with us, and is part of the innovation and technology for many countries. But if we don't take in the picture the balance in the resource and the impact, environmental and social and economic impact of different process, even the best technology, even the best clean technology cannot allow us to achieve sustainability goals. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I would like to, I was just thinking about, Dr. Loganathan, your experience in research centers, and very related with this. I don't know if you, like, what is your vision? Because you have spent a lot of time like doing research in the United States, I think, in also in Japan, which are developed countries, and perhaps the way of doing research for developing products and innovations is very different than the way, for example, it happens in India or in Colombia. What could be like these differences between the doing research in these parts of the world versus these other parts, and the relationship with this ecosystem in these different countries?
Yes, thank you for asking this question. It is really important that we need to discuss about the situation with respect to the different countries. I born and brought up in India, but I studied also in Japan, and then working in the United States, conducting environmental chemistry related research. So I want to, I can see a big difference in doing research in India, doing research in Japan, doing research in United States. All these three countries, when I was working in the lab, I see big difference in working in Indian labs and the Japanese lab and also United States lab. The big difference is that the accessible to the things you want to do. Say, for example, if I have a goal, I want to reduce pollution by highly toxic chemical like PCBs, which is one of the global pollutant which causes a serious problem on the global scale. I cannot do that kind of research in Indian lab because I do not have very expensive instrumentation and also all other necessary analytical instruments to do that kind of research. So I cannot do that. But when I came to Japan, I would be able to access all the facilities for doing that research, and then could be able to accomplish more than what I could be able to do in India. And then when I came to States, I also did the very, very similar kind of research, but I felt that in the United States, we spend more money for the same research I did in Japan or in India. So the thing is that the difference in the way we do the things, and also the availability of resources, those are limiting factor when you want to solve some problem that is of global scale. So therefore, how to solve this problem? Because in order to do that, we have to have the maybe the developed countries should help developing countries in order to have access to those kind of high sophisticated state-of-the-art instrumentation for those kind of research. So therefore, I think I can see a big difference, but it is really comes down to the financial situation. So
yeah, I understand that obviously there is a resource and technology barrier for developing a lot of different types of research. But I was thinking of this colonialism perspective in terms of the research, because when I was in Vienna, I went to a class, and there was I was thinking so far, like in this moment, okay, I am going to learn with the best about the new ways of doing research, and I am going to go back to Colombia and apply these theories and these technologies and these ways of doing things. Yeah, but there was some ladies there telling me that perhaps what they are teaching me is not relevant for my context, and I should find my answers elsewhere, not there. And it was very shocking for me. And I don't know, Professor Howie, what do you think about this? Like, because when we are conducting research in developing countries, mostly we are constrained by resources, but also we are applying theories that were developed in different contexts. I don't know if we should be worried about the resources, or perhaps we should try to find different ways to do research adjusted to our context. I don't know, but I would like to ask you about that, and then Professor Howe, I would like to see your perspectives on that. Professor Howe, and then Professor Loganathan.
I think it's very important to understand the history of science. And the history is a racist one, a sexist one, and a colonialist one. And so we have grown this Western science upon the backs of other people. And we often present science as if it's objective truth and objective reality, but it's one way of knowing things. It's a specific methodology, it's a specific language. And we need to understand that there are other equally valid ways of knowing. And so in the United States, at my university, we call this TEK, traditional ways of knowing, and that you have to integrate those with your projects. So especially if you're wanting to work with developing countries or marginalized groups of people, you have to understand their ways of knowing and what's going to make sense for them, and not just be published in a Western peer-reviewed journal. So by co-constructing the knowledge becomes richer. And so in my university, mostly working with Native American or indigenous groups, they teach us a lot of things about things like forest fire management, sustainable harvesting of salmon. And so when the colonialist mindset is there, like, we're going to help them manage their land, or we're going to help them maintain their salmon stocks, we're assuming that they haven't survived thousands of years on their own traditional ways of knowing that are not scientific per se. But without combining the knowledge from many different knowledge, we actually call them knowledges. There are many knowledges, and they are equally valid ways of knowing. And by combining them, we can actually enrich the research base from a traditional Western scientific perspective. So when you're trying to bring back our Western theories and our Western methods and our Vienna, Austria mindset to Colombia, I would say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Take what is helpful to you in Colombia, learn from it, but they also need to learn from you. And so without the bidirectional path of knowledge, we're all just stuck in our little cloud.
Thank you. Definitely. What do you think about this, Dr. Loganathan?
Well, I think it's important that resources are limited, but at the same time, we need to find a way to think about the ways to adjust or modify or develop new methods such a way that you can do what you want to do. For example, when I mentioned about the pollutants analysis in water or soil or sediments, and those kind of analysis is a very, very sophisticated instrumentation needed. Developing countries cannot afford to have those kind of facilities. But at the same time, I think now if I were to do the same thing now in India, I will do it. Because now I know that, we have to think slightly differently in such a way that you can approach this problem with the minimum materials, minimum the resources and instrumentation. All those things can be modified to fit your needs. So that kind of the adjustment you have to do. So therefore, all depends on it is possible, but it will take more time, and it will take more energy, and it will take more of thinking in those lines so that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. That is definitely, it is possible, but it is challenging when we do it in developing countries like India. But it is not that much challenging when you are, in the United States or Japan or Germany or those kind of, highly developed countries, which you can, easy access to things.
Thank you. And Professor Leon, what do you think about this debate on science and research and these perspectives in developed and developing countries?
Thank you, Mauricio. When I was made my PhD student in Switzerland, I have the opportunity to work with the unit of cooperation for development to Latin America countries, and we know that the resource in a country as Switzerland is very different to contest to Colombia or developing countries, but we understand that we have to adjust, acknowledge to our needs. We have also the possibility to cooperation and make a great networkings with scientists in other countries to bring technology, to use technology instrument that we maybe don't have in the country. So I think financial and technology is a important barrier to research, but it's not the biggest one. I think we need to adapt knowledge, technology with the real problems in the regions. Maybe the community have some solution that we as research don't think about. So it's a work that we need to do together. And also there are some limited for financial, but in a global world, we can find financial to different research. But the real problem, I think, is understand the problem in the origin and make the transfer of the solution according with the reality of all countries. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have some questions from the audience, very interesting ones. I would like to ask this question to all of you. The first one is technology an ally or an enemy of sustainability? Yeah, or under which context it could be an ally or an enemy? Perhaps Dr. Howie, what do you think about this?
Either or questions are usually not correct. So they're not mutually exclusive. It has pros and cons. I don't really know what else to say.
Okay, Professor Loganathan?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Ravi. So because it is, it's hard to see which one is exactly correct, but at the same, what I think is that we have to think in a way that whatever we do, it should be beneficial in long term, not for today or tomorrow. It should be, you should be thinking in the long term basis by, this generation to next generation to future generations. So our actions and our decision making things should be focused towards in the future.
Great. Professor Leon, what do you think about this question? Is technology an ally or an enemy of sustainability?
It's a good question. I think it depends in the way that decision makers use technology. a solution of technology that could be appropriate for Colombia, maybe is not appropriate for Vietnam, for example. So technology is an instrument that people use to get some solutions of some problems. So it's not, I say again, it's not the only way to achieve sustainability goals. It's an instrument, others kind of instruments, and decision makers have to manage this in the best way and apply this from the reality of the territories. Thank you.
Thank you. I just remembered a class that I'm teaching right now. It's called strategic marketing. And we had a debate the last Saturday related with the role of marketing in society. And I was telling them that as well as technology is an instrument that you could use for good or for bad. Mostly it's used for bad because most of the marketing has a lot of problems because they are selling things that are not true. They are sometimes playing with our emotions. And I think it has a potential for change in a good way if we use it with responsibility. And I think technology is the same. I would like to go to an issue which is, I think, is important. Perhaps we have discussed some of this in the past, but it is called barriers to implementation and transfer. Yeah, because normally, and we have our team we have a unit here in our university, which is the one that is in charge of developing good research and all these things of startups and spin-offs and technology transfer. We have a unit here that is doing a very good business, a very good job, sorry. And they are even working together with academics for creating patents and for creating this technology transfer. In fact, the team developed some of the questions that I am doing today. And this brings me to this issue of technology transfer, yeah? Because when we are working in research here and we are like developing new ideas that eventually are going to become new business or new technologies, there are a lot of barriers and challenges to the implementation and to the transfer, yeah? Especially coming from an emerging country, Professor Logonathan, what do you think are the biggest issues in terms of the technology transfer because sometimes we might think that, are we going to be always in this path of give me the technology and I am not going to develop my own, or like in your experience, what are the big barriers to technology transfer and technology implementation in our context?
Yes, I think it is important that the research we do in lab should not end up in the experimental part itself, which should go to real world. That means that whatever the finding you do, you have to transfer to a real world usage. That is the, it become actual technology transfer from lab to real world. So there are many research results are not being transferred to the actual use in the real world. So, but at the same time, there are still, most of them or some of them are maybe still experimental, may not have real applications in the real world. So there are barriers like that. So because if you think that you can say you produce a polymer that can harvest solar energy to produce electricity. This is a lab experiment you are doing. You are creating a new material. That material, that polymer is really more efficient than what are the solar panels you have on this building now. This is, you say that this is the better one. This can be, you can, if you are making the solar panel presently on the building is $100, this is same efficient, same, even more efficient than the previous one. It is only $10, it costs only $10. So you can transfer to the real world. That means it is an experimental result, but when you want to make it to the manufacturing productive level at the business marketing, then it is a little bit of a challenge, because it is not tested. It is not proved that in the large scale production. It's a small scale. It is working, only with small amount you can make it. But when you produce a large scale, millions and millions of tons of those materials, then we are not sure. So there is a barrier there. It is uncertain about their, the ability to make it. May be successful, but may not be successful also. At the same time, also, plus we do not know the consequences of those new material, which when you are transferring to the real world. That if the consequences means there may be toxic chemicals that may be releasing into the environment, causing problem, which we may not know. So there are uncertainties, unknown things may happen. So those are the things which are of barriers or challenges when we transfer some of the lab results to real world situation.
Thank you. And also from the social sciences perspective, and obviously when there is transfer, let's call the adoption of a new technology by a community or by a group of people, there is always going to be, as we have discussed, like different grades of adoption or opposition to these new technologies. Yeah, when like I'm not sure about like how much do you know about our different communities here in Colombia or in Latin America, but for sure you might be aware of that we have African American communities, we have indigenous communities, we have poor rural and poor urban communities. Like in this heterogeneity, when we are transferring technologies or creating innovation to this group of people, what do you think should be or could be the most affected groups, the more sensitive groups, Dr. Howie, and how should we approach when we work with these communities? I give you an example from here. EAN University developed engineering students. They developed a solution for a place which is very cold weather. Yeah, they develop a kind of a solution for the houses, which involves windows that you create kind of a how do you see this
physical barrier, maybe.
Yeah, did you remember, Professor Leon, this project with the windows that create like higher temperatures in the houses of?
Yes.
Yeah.
This.
Trombe walls. Yeah. So they created this kind of artificial weather, and they created such a good impact in a poor community that otherwise would be affected with these cold temperatures, because they live in the Paramo, which is a very cold weather here in Colombia. So I was feeling inspired by this, but then I think we are like somehow intervening or interacting with these old ways of doing things, and I think we should be careful in doing that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword. I'm thinking of our students at my university designed an electrical box for villages in Nepal that have a lot of blackouts. So the boxes are for small villages where each family gets electricity at a different amount of time, and then it won't black out the whole community, and everyone will get a few hours to do their chores or whatever. And that was developed based on the needs that that community expressed, that we can't cook our food or do our laundry or whatever because we're constantly on a blackout. So you always have to discuss it with the community. But the other side of that is that sometimes communities aspire to be like the rich people. And so they will adopt things that are actually unhealthy for them, that their own ways of doing things were better. And I'm thinking of just my kids as an example. I used to have to tell them when they saw the commercials on TV about the unhealthy cereals and candies, I would have to teach them critical thinking, that these companies only care about money. They don't care about your health, and they're trying to trick you because they think you're stupid and they want you to eat things that will destroy your health. So my little 5-year-olds would, watch TV and say, they're trying to trick me. They want me to eat something that's bad for me. So on a grander scale, we have to look at, of course, I'm looking through the lens of families, things like breast milk formula. We are exporting formula around the world to make money for corporations when breast milk is the healthiest way to raise children. And so oftentimes the barrier is not there because they're aspiring to be like what they see in the Western world as rich or successful or modern. So it's kind of like it goes in both directions, where they are sometimes resistant to technologies that actually might make their lives easier. So we need to work as a team to get their buy-in. But then on the other hand, they may aspire to be like the Western or scientific or rich people when it's actually not as good for them as their own ways of doing things historically.
Okay, very interesting. And I was thinking about, okay, so sometimes these big corporations are just caring about money. So we should develop our own businesses, and we should develop our own products. And again, this makes me think about another example here in our university related with an indigenous community that they were developing a product. Is kind of a hot sauce based on the chilies that are in this Amazonian region, yeah. And obviously, we as researchers and we as so-called experts, sometimes we're telling them, okay, so you need to develop a business model so you can commercialize your hot sauce, and then you are going to have money for, I don't know, for clothes or for no, even for good things, for healthcare, for example, yeah. But again, and it's the same with the so-called we call it here the orange economy, which is like the so-called like the creative industries, from software to arts, including music, including theater, yeah, and also cultural tourism. So we have beautiful places that I will really hope that you can visit eventually in the Pacific, for example, and they have local communities, and they maybe are agree or not with this rural tourism, yeah. Perhaps they don't need to be visited by anyone, yeah. Perhaps they don't need to develop companies for I don't know, showing their culture to foreigners, yeah. So sometimes we, as you have mentioned, we are very, I don't know, Bogota-centric or Eurocentric or North-centric, and we are not thinking about these perspectives. So when developing a social innovation that fulfills our needs, what means our in a very diverse society such as ours, and how can we develop really meaningful ways of life for these communities in which sometimes we call social innovation. So Professor Howie, what do you think about this?
Well, I'm thinking of the example of the rural people in Peru who have always lived off of quinoa, and they were growing it for thousands of years, and it's a staple protein in their diet. Well, we white people in the US decided it was a health food, and we created the partnership Fair Trade, so we're not exploiting them, but we bought all the quinoa. So then they didn't even have enough left for them to eat. And when they did want to eat it, they couldn't afford it because all of us rich people made the prices so high. So that's just one example of how even when you try to make things fair trade and less exploitative, you're still not thinking of 5 years down the road, what is this going to mean for the community? And so even if those farmers felt like they were being treated fairly and they wanted to export their crop and they wanted to export their hot sauce or whatever, that it was going to work out for them. But you really have to think about, how can I maintain my indigenous or local or rural lifestyle while also connecting with the capitalist benefits of it? Because if you're only thinking about the capitalist benefit, you might be actually losing part of their culture. Like you said, maybe they don't want people to visit. I'm thinking of some of the Native American dances and ceremonies. You're not allowed to see that. That's not for you. No matter how much you pay, that's private. And so they have to set boundaries of, we will allow you to visit this or these times of year. And so we really have to give them the power and allow them to keep their own power over their own image and their own goods and their own skills, so that we're not pushing just for the commercial benefit.
Thank you. So very interesting discussion. I would like to move to our last part of the discussion, which is the future, perspectives on the future. And I have a question for Dr. Leon. From the presentation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, what research and development activities should be promoted in our city or in our country to show a more sustainable ecosystem?
Thank you, Mauricio. I would like to respond about Bogota City. In Bogota, we need to keep working on projects such sustainable mobility. We also need keep working with companies on product and service design, innovation, and circular economy to reduce the ecological footprint. And we also need to, and it is very important, not only for Bogota, but also for all cities in the country, we need to design and implement waste management plans to overcome the environmental and social problems of landfills. It's a really a huge problem in Colombia and also in many developing countries. And it's already solved for other countries. So it's a very important issue. We have to work on projects, particularly for Bogota, to protect wetlands and strategic ecosystems that can be have a better quality of air and better quality of life for the citizens. But the most important thing is work together, academic, public, private sector, to achieve these goals.
Great. I would like to ask again to the public if you have any other question, because I already have here one, which is very interesting. Yes, please. I don't know if someone can bring him the, yeah.
Thank you. My question is for all panelists. In Colombia, we would like to improve our transfer process. What is the main recommendation that you give us for know that we are in the right way?
Since we are almost finishing, I will ask a question to Dr. Hoey as well. Innovation and transfer is a human activity, and humans are struggling in late months with mental health problems. It's a huge issue in our society. If we want people that research and solve social challenges and solve sustainability issues, we need healthy people. And we have parents that are struggling with children at home, that are doing homeschooling, that are also researching. For example, you might know people in your universities that are also struggling with this. How do you see this from your perspective as a social scientist, a psychologist? That's also something we have to address besides technology and sustainability goals. How can we fix our humans?
Now you're speaking my language. So I work across the world and across all different sectors of society to train people to transform their organizations into trauma-informed organizations. I could give you a whole 5-hour-long lecture about this, but briefly, without acknowledgement of the trauma that we all have faced now with COVID, but even before that, the trauma of discrimination, of racism, of poverty, of poor health, of lack of opportunity, child abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, all of the things that have affected us as children becomes embedded in our brains, and our brains start developing around the environmental experiences that we have. And then as adults, we're all here in a room interacting with each other. And so to transform an entire organization into a trauma-informed organization, that's a long, long process, but that is how we can start to create healing across sectors, which will increase productivity. You'll have less worker absence. You'll have less people calling in sick, committing suicide, having mental health breakdowns, not being able to accomplish their tasks. So being trauma informed and being able to care for the whole employee is really where a lot of places are going now. So I've been training police, medical staff, school districts, Native American tribes, all different sectors about this transformation of society that has to happen, because for so long we have not acknowledged that mental health is just as important as physical health, but also they're not separate. They are completely connected to each other. And what happens to you trauma-wise becomes embedded in all of your cells, affects your immune system, your respiratory system, your cardiovascular system. So it's just a very important question. And going back to the Sustainable Development Goals, that World Health Organization Lancet Commission basically said, unless we take care of childhood trauma and take care of mental health, we have no future.
Thank you, Professor. And I would like to ask Professor Loganathan to answer the first of our questions. As I said, we have here the unit of technology transfer, Professor William Steve, Professor, our expert, Mauricio Cárdenas, and it was the manager of the unit. It was here, Leonardo Rodriguez. So they are running this unit, and they are facing a lot of challenges in the near future in terms of how we do in a good way technology transfer. So what is your opinion on that?
I think a good way of technology transfer is to approach this issue with understanding of, that means that collaboratively working together and open discussion, whether it is what are the beneficial aspects of current instant benefit, and then what are the future benefits, and what are the challenges to implement those new clean technologies, for the future. So therefore, as a chemist, I would like to say that there are so many issues that are particularly industrial emissions cause a lot of problems related to climate change. So in order to handle that kind of problems, the industries must examine the products and the processes to see where, how they can apply some the green technology or green chemistry related principles, so that they can reduce their ecological footprints or carbon print. So the chemical industries maybe evaluate how their products are being used. That means that improving the resource use, most efficient way of using the energy, minimizing the human environmental hazards. All this will allow them to identify the substance that increase the product's ecological effects. So therefore, then systematically look for the alternative, like designing a product that is degradable, designing the real-time analysis of those preventions, design for energy efficiency, and also inherently safer materials that can be transferred to the future. So therefore, we can avoid the future footprints, ecological footprints.
Thank you. And I would like to thank our audience. I would like to thank the people that are connected online, Professor Leon and Dr. Howie, Dr. Loganathan, for this debate. It's always good to have different approaches to science development and innovation. And I think we covered very interesting issues, not only the technology, but the social implications of this current debate. So thank you so much. I would like to invite you to sit here, because we are going to have of course. A cultural act. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we are going to have a cultural act, so we can go to the audience part and enjoy the cultural act. No.
Muchas gracias a todos.
Muchas
Thank you.
gracias. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.